Your calendar is jammed wall to wall, yet nothing feels decided. You sit through the same debate for the third time, nod along, then leave with zero clarity.
Prep happens 5 minutes before. Follow-up happens never, just a quiet fade into, "we'll circle back."
Meetings are stealing your week twice, once in the room and again in all the cleanup you never have time to do. If your schedule looks full, but your work feels stuck, you are not busy. You are leaking time in places you cannot see. Moving to slide 2. That leak is not only the meeting. It is the switching cost before and after. You scramble to remember context, hunt links, and patch a story together. Then you lose another block recovering focus after. Meetings also stretch because nobody knows the stopping point, so attendance creeps up just in case. Every extra person multiplies the cost, even when they say nothing. If you want your week back, stop paying for conversations that never produce a decision. Moving to slide 3. Here is the rule that changes everything. No decision, no meeting. A meeting is not a place to think out loud until time runs out. It is a tool to finish something. So before you accept or send an invite, write the decision in one sentence. Not the topic, the decision. For example, choose vendor A or B, or approve the launch date, or pick one of these 3 priorities. If you cannot write that sentence, you do not have a meeting yet. Watch for the common traps.
Updates disguised as alignment.
Brainstorms with no selection step. Risks that get mentioned but nobody owns. Next steps that are really just more discussion. Fix it with 3 lines in the invite. Line 1, decision to be made. Line 2, options on the table, with a default option. Line 3, who decides and what input you need from each person.
Then end the meeting the moment the decision is made.
Even if there are 10 minutes left. Time is not the point. Closure is. When you enforce that, you start noticing how many agendas were never designed to produce an outcome. Moving to slide 4. Most agendas are lies. They look organized, but they are just a list of topics that guarantees drift. A real agenda is outcomes, in order, with constraints. Take your current template and change 5 things. First, rewrite each item as an outcome, not Project X. Write, approve Project X scope, or resolve the open question on pricing, or decide owner for onboarding. If you cannot turn an item into an outcome, it belongs in a doc, not a meeting. Second, put the hardest decision first. Do not burn the first 20 minutes on warm-up updates, and then rush the decision at the end. Third, attach the pre-read and make it explicit what people must do before they show up. If the pre-read is not ready, reschedule. Otherwise, you are buying live reading time with everyone's salary. Fourth, time box each item and say what happens when time is up. Extend, delegate, or decide with what you have. Fifth, assign an owner to every item. Owners drive the outcome and capture the decision in one sentence before people leave. When agendas tell the truth, meetings get shorter without anyone feeling rushed, and you stop using the room for the most expensive mistake of all, the live status update. Moving to slide 5. Status updates are poison because they turn a meeting into a broadcast. One person talks, everyone else pays an attention tax, and the details drown the only thing that matters, what is stuck and what needs a decision. Move updates out of the room. Send a written update on a schedule in a fixed format. 3 bullets per workstream. What changed? What is blocked? What decision is needed? Add links for anyone who wants depth. Then set a deadline, like 4 p.m. the day before, so questions arrive early instead of ambushing the meeting. In the meeting itself, ban reporting. Start with blockers and decisions only. If someone begins narrating a timeline, interrupt politely and ask, "What do you need from us?" If the answer is nothing, it goes back to the doc. If you still need visibility, do it asynchronously and let people skim at their own pace. Meetings should be for solving, not for announcing. When you separate updates from decisions, the room gets quieter, sharper, and suddenly you have space for a different kind of meeting. Moving to slide 6. You join a meeting and 2 tracks start running at once. The discussion track keeps expanding. People add edge cases, history, and opinions. Meanwhile, the decision track never actually starts because nobody names the decision, the owner, or the deadline. Someone says, "Let's park that," and the parking lot becomes a graveyard. Open loops multiply fast. "We should follow up. We need data. Let's circle back." Then time runs out. Everyone leaves half-sure, and the next meeting starts by replaying the same debate with slightly different people. If this keeps happening, the issue is not your team's intelligence. It is that the meeting never switches from talking to deciding, and that usually points to a hidden bottleneck upstream. Moving to slide 7. Your real bottleneck is not the conversation. It is the inputs. Requests, docs, Slack threads, tickets, and half-made notes are scattered across tools, so there is no single source of truth. Decisions get made in the room and vanish into someone's memory. A week later, the same debate repeats because nobody can find what was decided, why, and under what assumptions. Actions get assigned, but they are not tied to an actual goal or metric. So done does not mean worked. And because there is no feedback loop on meeting quality, broken formats keep getting scheduled by default. Fix the system around the meeting, and you stop relying on heroics inside the meeting. Moving to slide 8. Here is what an AI meeting system looks like in practice. Before a meeting can even be scheduled, there is an intake step. You answer a few structured prompts, and that becomes the seed for everything else. From that intake, the agenda is generated automatically, around outcomes, not topics. Each item is written as something you will do, like choose option, approve scope, or resolve risk. The system packages a pre-read that includes the latest context, the options on the table, and the specific questions that must be answered. It shares that pre-read to invitees, and it can ask for async comments before anyone meets. During the meeting, you do not rely on someone taking perfect notes. Decisions are captured live in a consistent format. Decision, owner, due date, and the reason. The moment you close the meeting, follow-ups go out automatically to owners with the exact text of what they accepted. When your meetings run this way, discussion becomes fuel for decisions instead of a place where work goes to disappear. And it starts with what you allow into the calendar. Moving to slide 9. Intake is where you stop garbage meetings before they happen. First, you select the decision type up front. Is this a one-way door decision, a reversible test, a prioritization call, or a simple alignment check? That choice changes what context is required. Next, the form forces completion of the fields that matter. The goal, the deadline, constraints, what has already been tried, and what success looks like. If you cannot state those, you are not ready to book time. Then stakeholders are auto-suggested based on who owns dependencies, who will execute, and who can veto. That cuts out the common failure where the room is full, but the one necessary person is missing. Before scheduling, the system offers an async alternative. If the decision is low risk or can be made with comments and a clear owner, it routes to async and cancels the meeting. And if the request is vague, the meeting is rejected with a short list of what to clarify. Once your intake enforces clarity, the agenda can finally force closure. Moving to slide 10. An agenda that forces closure is built around exit criteria. Every agenda item starts with an outcome verb: decide, approve, rank, commit, or unblock. If an item cannot be written that way, it is not an agenda item yet. Each item has a time box with a hard stop. When the timer ends, you either decide, delegate a decision to a named owner, or explicitly defer with a new due date. No drifting. Options are pre-populated before the meeting, ideally 3. The leading option, a credible alternative, and a do-nothing baseline. That keeps the conversation from inventing choices in real time. A decision owner is clearly named on the agenda, so everyone knows who is accountable for the call. If it is a group decision, the tiebreaker is still a person. Finally, the exit criteria are shown up front. What must be true by the end of this item for you to move on? When your agenda is written this way, Meetings stop covering topics and start producing commitments that can be captured live without anyone scrambling.
Moving to slide 11. Live capture means you do not babysit notes.
During the meeting, log decisions as objects, what was decided, why, and what it unblocks.
For every risk that comes up, pair it with an owner on the spot, so it cannot float around as a vibe.
Action items only count if they tie to a goal or metric. Otherwise, they are just motion.
Keep open questions, but time box them with a decision date or a research owner. And draft the summary while people are still talking, in the same structure every time. Decisions, actions, risks, questions.
When the meeting ends, the work is already organized, and follow-through stops being optional. Moving to slide 12. Follow-up lands when it is personal, dated, and dependency-aware. Do not send a generic recap to everyone. Each owner gets a direct prompt with their specific deliverable, plus the exact date it is due, written as a date, not end of week. If something depends on another team, flag that dependency immediately so it does not turn into silent waiting.
Set reminders to escalate gradually, a gentle nudge, then a firmer check-in, then a manager-visible ping, only if it is still stuck.
And adjust the next meeting automatically based on what is actually unresolved, so you don't rehash what is already done. That is how execution becomes the default behavior, not a heroic effort. Moving to slide 13. You improve what you tolerate, so measure the parts you keep complaining about. Track decision rate per hour. If it is low, you are paying for talk, not progress. Detect recurring topics. If the same issue shows up 3 meetings in a row, it is either missing a decider or missing a plan. Score invite bloat by counting attendees who did not speak, decide, or own anything.
Track prep compliance. Did people review the intake before showing up? Yes or no?
Then estimate cost per decision by multiplying total attendee time by loaded hourly rates and dividing by decisions made. When those numbers are visible, bad meetings stop feeling normal, and fixing them becomes obvious. Moving to slide 14. Here is a clean first week that does not require a company-wide overhaul. Day 1. Pick one meeting to fix. Choose the one that happens weekly and drains the most energy, because small improvements compound fast.
Day 2. Add intake to the invite.
2 questions are enough. What decision is needed, and what options are on the table? If someone cannot answer, the meeting is not ready yet.
Day 3. Convert updates to async. Put status in a shared thread or doc, and make the live meeting decision only. Day 4. Name the decider explicitly. Not "we will align," but one person who will choose after hearing input.
Day 5. Publish a decision log that anyone can search. Keep it simple. Date, decision, owner, and link to context. Day 6. Run the meeting with that structure and capture everything live. Day 7. Review the metrics you just created. Then tighten one screw, like cutting attendees or shortening the slot. In a week, your calendar stops owning you. Moving to slide 15. Stop renting your calendar. Every meeting must earn its time, and every decision needs a system that survives after the call. Use async for information flow, and use AI to enforce the workflow. Capture decisions, assign owners, set dates, and chase dependencies. Your job is to protect deep work so progress can actually happen. If you want more scripts like this, subscribe, and comment with the one meeting you would fix first. Don't chase every AI tool. Build the systems that outlive them.